Okay, so was this thing focusing on this Boy Scout camp this week? This like Boy Scout camping trip this week about Bosnia? Mm. Yeah, okay. And the Boy Scouts were actually a flip from those boys that were in downtown Dallas. Yeah, right? 15 to 17. So they'd be what? Eagle Scouts, maybe? Maybe starting out for their Eagle Scout like option. Eagles, right? Somebody, somebody would love that shit, right? Okay. And is it the kind of thing that black kids in the United States were signed up for the first round of what do they call it? Um, Youth banking after you had already done the Irish kids as part of Good Friday, right? The Bank of Ulster, the whole youth bank shit, and then that shit city group set up, right, after the financial capabilities of young Americans. And so you tested it out on certain kids within the United States. I imagine probably a lot of DACA kids, some black kids, and then you got those entrepreneurs in Africa involved, and now we got like African blockchains and babies being born on blockchain, and it's like a real phenomenon. Parents are really, 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 benefiting from being able to market their kids at even younger ages. And now every kid in America is supposed to be rented out on a timeshare for $300 a month. But you got the head of the Bosnian intelligence getting busted for issuing fake university diplomas. You mean like a specific kind of security document that makes you perhaps a very high level executive account? Because remember, they had that thing in 2019 where they busted that university, where those parents got busted for rigging the college admissions. Was that just like the Women's Center? That was like the higher class of setting up options to prostitute your kid for the rest of their life. And by the time that stuff hit in 2019, there had already been 23, 24 years. So that would have been like it's somebody's like year where they were like trying to get their certificate so that their certificate would have what, like a 3 year period, and then they could put like a short term on that 2 to 3 year period. And so by now, right, you could literally be flipping that shit through some of that good stuff, like pure stuff way back in the day, like literal like Bosnian genocide. And so that $1 million to prosecute war crimes, is that how you intended to pay it off? You were going to pay off that $1 million to prosecute war crimes by getting a couple busts here in order to put insurance on getting the high profile security documents associated with your exclusive account features. And meanwhile, masses and masses of children were supposed to be degraded. So, do you have something comparable going on in the US? Do you have something comparable to like that level going on right here in the US? I mean, come on, guys. We got a 72-hour period before Army Futures Command is expecting to get its XCOM, right? And you haven't really disclosed because nobody was keeping track of that shit, just like the State Department. I don't know why, if you were a senator, you didn't have a little more self esteem. You're gonna really try to put that bill through. All right. So that's what I'm getting that is going on right here, right? And you don't have any intention of disclosing, but eyes, right? Eyes on the prize, and I'm not the only one that saw that shit. Now I heard you say Bennett isn't going to prosecute. Why? Because they know what they did, and they got busted, right? They got busted big time. And so when something like this happens, even if you have already budgeted in a really comprehensive genocidal moment, and even if you're like really willing to like go like Highland Forum and take out 80% of the world's population, well, that 20% quality of life, right? And so somebody's already seen this, and somebody's like already, what kind of obligations did Russia have to the Ukraine? I just want to know, did they have the kind of obligations where it's like, look, we might have some problems, but if somebody tries to like strategically lure you in order to genocide you, and by genociding you, try to genocide us, then we have an obligation to go to war and completely destroy the material conditions for them to be able to accomplish that objective? Because I'm going to tell you, that sounds like a completely reasonable obligation, regardless of where you come from, regardless of what your concept of national character is or your culture. That is a completely, when they talk about like reasonableness, standards of reasonableness, that's absolutely, to me, that meets the standard of reasonableness. All this other shit you guys set up as part of this horrendous, horrendous ceremony, that wasn't reasonable. bargaining price point on what demographic of kids you're going to sell for what, and or what proportion of what demographic of kids you're going to write at the onset as being dead dead souls, so you may or may not like execute that option on that demographic specifically, or you may not give them sometime later the option, the option to substitute. Because just so you know, the petition they ended up getting, that they stole the original paper they got, what was the who were the people? It was about the metrics, right? And you already had your little congressional committee about the metrics, and you got the paper on that. I mean, there's only so much I can do. I'm the one that's got the original petition with the paper on the substitutions, right? And so it's kind of like one of these things where your little diabolicism has put me in a really awkward situation, because I think it's completely unreasonable to allow for a situation where you try to feign some plausible deniability about what's going on because you think you have the option to substitute, right? You think you have the option to like swap out your bond where you've totally set up a horrible, atrocious situation with your kid because you're willing to take the risk in order to get a higher payoff or to get a more consistent payoff for a longer term if you let them torture your child for a short period of time with an expectation that your kid will rebound and you'll be able to put them on some drugs during the duration, and then you're just going to swap that out. You're going to substitute somebody else in to take that horrible future you set up on your kid. And you may or may not let somebody delude you into think that somehow you're standing up for and participating in the war effort. Yeah, we have to protect our children, and we have to do what we need to in order to maximize the profitability of the exploitation of our children. And in order to do that, we got this option to substitute. You actually don't. See, if you've already set this up and you've already committed to it and somebody stole that, and so they think they can control, they have the controlling interest, that might well be the case. I've got the paper, I got the original paper right here on the substitution option, and I have absolutely no fucking intention of letting you substitute that shit out. If you've already agreed to take that child tax credit, you've already been warned. You're not allowed to sexually exploit your child and put him on drugs and then think that that violent, horrible sexual exploitation, which is based upon options that were set up that were literally identified as genocide and that were literally identified as torture. You don't have the option of creating a beautiful little submissive Muslim boy or girl just long enough for you to be able to get your goddamn fucking payoff and then swap it out so that somebody else's kid gets taken down. I think that's what we've just kind of discovered today. Okay, so, there's this standard reasonable and proper. There's nothing proper about this. And so far, the only thing I've heard that's reasonable is, we got to honor our obligations to not let them genocide you. But then we get into a really strange situation because you actually do. People have an obligation to assure against genocide. But what do you do when you've got a group of people that are so completely debauched and self-righteous and conceited in whatever else it was that they thought was important, that they've literally set up global genocide options? Who's it supposed to fucking fall on? I've been telling you guys this directly since November 2019. You don't get to play a game where you pretend that your kid is getting poisoned or that somebody is setting up something, attacking your kid, and you play into it in order to bid out the deal and then get your cut and then let them swap that out with somebody else. Ultimately, where's that going to hit? Do you think you're going to go back to Bosnia? I think Bosnia just got busted, right? Do you think you're going to go to Palestine? Well, Palestine just got busted. Syria just got busted. Afghanistan, I think they just got busted. China? You think you're going to go to China? Because I think that we might be in a really bad situation because China's hooked up something comparable. And all of your bitching about the Uyghur camps didn't actually do anything to stop the fact that you set up your own here. And you used children. And regardless of what else you promised them with using your children, you got busted. And it makes the rest of the world look really fucking bad when the United States did this and absolutely nobody in any leadership position has said anything about it. This isn't about a we won't disclose. That's not what this is about. This isn't about a we don't disclose or we won't disclose moment. This isn't even about trying to couch it into some sort of religious fanaticism justification, right? You guys really should have attacked the Libra rate with everything you fucking had. You really should have attacked that. You should have exposed what that was. It might have given you some process by which to actually do something reasonable and proper. You didn't. All right. Okay. All right.